Well, hello, everybody, and welcome to another edition of Average Superstar TV. I'm your host, Laura Lepre. I'd like to welcome you to episode number 83. Please hit that subscribe button on YouTube, Spotify, and iHeartRadio. Hitting that thumbs up as well and comments really helps with the algorithm. And this week is returning. I got two guests that our last roundtable went so good. We came up with another wacky idea for a countdown here. So last time we did what we thought were the best tag teams of all time. Well, for you wrestling fans, we're going the opposite. We're doing the train wrecks of wrestling. All the cartoon characters from the 80s and 90s, and just basically any character that we found funny. Like when they came down to the ring, put you in a good mood. So like this isn't like Hogan, Flair, Rock, Ross, like this is like the ass kickers, the awesome. Like this is just like some of these people had amazing careers. Some of these people were like fly-by nights and you never saw them again. But when you see them, like, oh! So we're gonna have a retro of a good time here. So returning, Matt, welcome back to the show, brother.
Thank you, man. Thank you for having me. Appreciate it.
That's it. And Simo, welcome back as well.
What's good?
That's good. Well, with that, wrestling fans, get ready to have a good time with this one because I promise you right out of the gate, we're going to go right around the room and coming in. I don't really have a number. I'm just going to go like coming up next. All right. Our first selection of this pure humor. This guy always lit me up as soon as I saw him. The Repo Man. Tell me the song didn't just immediately pop in your head when you say that. Like the song just popped right in. So what's going? We're in cartoon land in the WWF at this particular moment. I thought I knew everything, even at this age. I was a young little buck. It took me a long time to realize that this was Smash from Demolition. Actually, he said stinking in his interview one time, and I froze. I was like, wait a minute. And I caught on. But this is a character that just it's cartoon land. We had to have crazy characters. Vince McMahon or him, I don't know who came up with this one, but the freaking Repo Man, folks. Matt, jump in on this one.
I mean, I remember him from moons ago. Moons before he came to WWF, he was tagging with Jim Neidhart. Fairly successful guy. Came in, with Smash and Demolition for years. And interestingly enough, after that started to tail off, they moved him towards the Repo Man. And then oddly, surprise, they never mentioned him as Smash again when he was the Repo Man. The gimmick was fun. And he actually had a few good feuds over the years. Had one really good with the Bulldog, lasted almost half a year. But yeah, he was a fun character, man. I liked him a lot. And I met him at a show years later when I was actually doing, if you can call it security, for he and Axe. They were tagging up in the independent circuit, and I met him and I went, were you okay with that angle? And he's like, I didn't mind it. He had fun with it. But yeah, man, he was a cool guy. It was fun, but I always remember the Repo Man, and the theme song still spins in my head every time I see the guy.
I don't think he even, I can't speak for him, but I don't think he cared as much. He's cemented in time with his tag team. Like, yep. I don't think the guy was pressing to become the heavyweight champion. I just think he enjoyed what he was doing. He's going to be remembered for something. But this is just one of his aftermath spinoffs, and we all love it. Simo.
The thing I remember best about the Repo Man was that little shrugging the shoulders, sinister laugh he would do a lot, all the time. That thing cracked me up. And then, seeing him later on in life, I think it was probably like 5 years ago, he was back with Demolition in the bondage costume. It was kind of weird, but Repo Man was great.
They were total bondage. That was like total Rob Halford. Like when you really look at it later, you're like, ugh.
Yeah. And the fact that it was like literally about 5 years ago, it was a year before COVID. So
yeah, I hear you. Sweet. I even like Barry Darsow when he went to WCW, and he was a truck driver, which I thought they could have really pushed, but they ended up firing him. But then he also came back as a professional golfer, and it was the most childish gimmick I ever saw. But I loved it. It was total cartoonish, where he would just putt in the ring and then hit his opponent and get disqualified. I was like, he got paid for that. He didn't know wrestling moves. Assault someone with a putter and off he went. It was crazy. Coming up next is something that would never fly today. No one ever thinks of this when you think about this character. He's forgotten, but was on top of the world at one point. The African, repeat, African Dream Akeem. That goes over very well in today's world. Do you know when we were younger, like, who thought that? Like, wait, he's white. You didn't think of Yeah, he's in rival with Hulk Hogan for 3 years. It made all this money. And the guy himself, the one-man gang's a great dude, but what was Vince thinking with that one? Matt, all you.
This was fun. I mean, this was straight up fun. I mean, when he was a one-man gang, I remember this guy back in old World Class, fighting the Von Erichs in Texas, and just the most vicious, he was horrible. But a very one or two move wrestler. And then Vince latched onto him and had him tag with the boss man and Slick as the manager. It was fun. Goofy as all hell. And when the match was over and he was dancing, I mean, this was the shit that you loved. It was funny, goofy. You knew he was not going to go anywhere, but it was a great angle. I had fun with it.
But the guy did 3 years on the road with them, and he really just kind of quit. He gave Vince his notice. Basically, he was a big guy. Remember Jim Ross? It was hard for him to travel, so he made his money and got out. That's basically what he did. But the fact that he was getting punched and he'd be like all in dazing.
He was fun, man. He was a good show. He really was.
Simo, your thoughts on the great African Dream, Akeem?
What do you say? It's been 37, 38 years since he and Dusty Rhodes had that match together, and it's still a viral GIF that you see everywhere where Dusty's doing the
Yup.
And Akeem's there. You didn't know which one was getting hit, which one wasn't in 15 seconds. They were selling the exact same way. That was the beauty of Akeem, How many days in school did you spend doing that stupid dance?
Everybody was. Everyone was doing those dances. Both of them, Dusty and him. There was like a Thunder Punch He-Man match when them two got together. For anyone who gets that reference. All right, we're going to move on to our next classic wrestler here. All right. This one we all know too well. The almighty Brooklyn Brawler. I can tell you when I used to see wrestling at the CYC in Scranton, Steve Lombardi was like the jobber that got loud with the audience because most of them just sat there and made a face when their name was said. But this was the guy that you could always tell, like, yeah, he's going to yell back at you. This guy was. So you knew the guy eventually, he had potential, and then one day, there he is, and he's getting his push. But he was definitely someone no matter what. Even back then when we saw him, I couldn't help it. I was just like, yeah, the Brawler. He's going to lose, but it's the Brawler. Matt.
Typical Saturday afternoon jobber. I mean, what more can you say? And Lauren, like you said he was full-on fan interaction. I mean, he was the atypical bad guy. He had literally no move set. He just went in there, got his ass kicked all the time. And then actually when he became the Brawler, he ran a short program with Bobby Heenan. And it was fun at the time, but it was always like, oh my God, this goofball again. But he was just, you can go through the annals of history and go, who's the guy who's had his ass looking up at the lights more than anybody? And you say Steve Lombardi, and it's just, it's classic, dude. It's classic.
I don't even know. I know he became an agent for a while for the.
Yeah.
I don't know if he's still there, but the guy still was getting paid. He was part of that universe for a long time.
He was one of McMahon's big boys for quite a while, man. Yeah, he hung on for a bit.
I believe he was part of that budget cut that happened right around the COVID time with there was like 300 names that ended up getting cut. But I mean, that'd be 40 years with WWE. How many people would spend 40 years with one company?
Right.
How many people stay 40 years at any job? So you knew he loved what he was doing one way or another.
Exactly. Yep.
And even on top of that, like that match when he pinned Triple H back in, what was it, 95, I believe it was?
Yeah.
Did you hear the crowd when he got that pin?
I don't remember this, so I'm hands off on this one. Wow, I didn't know that.
It was a shocker. It was a shocker.
Yeah. Yep. If I'm not mistaken, it was a tag match where he was like the tag partner, and he got a roll.
He was filling in for somebody, wasn't he?
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, it was a shocker. Yeah, it was crazy.
Yeah, I wonder.
The sound
was he in the outhouse? Was Hunter in the White House? Outhouse at the moment? Like, wow.
He wasn't with Stephanie yet, so he didn't eat any shit yet. So,
well, good for Steve Lombardi because it didn't really hurt Triple H's career at all.
No, definitely not.
All right, moving on to our next selection is one that the second they invented this wrestler, I rooted for him every time. I was like, this is overdue. Yeah, the almighty Disco Inferno. I got a real Jeff. Yo, this guy came. When like you're sitting there thinking of characters for comic books and TV, I was like, wow, how did I not even think of this? Like, even go near this? Like, yo, people hate Disco. He's a buffoon. This is perfect. It's wrestling. It's so freaking perfect. I cheer Disco every single time. The match I'll always remember was that I thought was his best is when Dean Malenko, the Iceman, killed him. Like, because it's like, here comes no playing around Dean Malenko. And I mean, he was screaming and yelling, whoa, it's like Dean Malenko killed him once on a pay-per-view. And I couldn't stop laughing. Like his entire, he had no offensive moves at all. And I thought it was like the funniest match ever. And I highly enjoyed it. Matt.
Lauren, I love you, but this guy was the epitome of commercial piss break when the guy came on screen. When he came out there, I remember him teaming up with Alex Wright to be the Dancing Fools. And later on, they were like the Boogie Nights or something like that.
Yeah.
And then later on, he joined the NWO Wolfpack. I mean, who the hell didn't join NWO back in the day? But every time this guy came out, I put my head in my hands and I went, my God. Like you said it too, something as simple as Disco Inferno, have him come out to some shitty disco music, literally pull no moves off, but to draw that much of a reaction from the crowd, that shit was gold. It was gold, and it worked. So,
and the reason you would hit the bathroom is you just don't like disco. That's your problem. I was dancing. I had that song downloaded.
Why does that not surprise me?
Because for all the great music that I love, I like a lot of bad music. When the washed up band comes to town and there's 50 people there, I'm not the first one there, but
that's okay. Yeah. It's all right, man. There's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah. Yeah, I've seen Vanilla Ice 6 times. All right, people. Sybil, all you here.
Yeah, I sing The Darkness in karaoke, so I feel you on that one. But anyway. Disco is fun. Hysterical seeing him come down. Once that bell rang, you knew what it was.
It worked so good. Still one of the all-time greats for me. Disasters, but I'll dig it. All right, moving up to our next one was someone who came in and made a major impact and also left kind of quick side. The almighty Eugene. This is one that Matt picked up. You go first, brother.
This was like, I had almost forgotten about this guy completely till I started thinking back. Nick Dinsmore had a pretty successful run in OVW, actually won quite a few championships. He was a solid fundamental wrestler from I remember watching the guy back in the day. And then, naturally he latched on to McMahon's gig and McMahon decided to turn him into a retard. It was just,
it's just amazing. Like I just said we just had African. The African, I think it's worse, but at the same time, like, wow, Vince really.
I could, yeah.
Would just not happen today. Like,
there's no way you couldn't get away with this right now without somebody crawling up your ass and just literally shutting you down. I mean, he had some funny stuff, but every time he came out, it was just. And after a while, the fans kind of fell on it because they looked at it as, okay, this is getting worse and worse. It didn't draw much of a crowd reaction. Then they tried even reaching for the ultimate desperation and pairing him with Hogan for a bit, which is really just shit the bed.
I think it was like you just knew this was going to be a short life. Like this was something that wasn't supposed to be past 6 months before.
Yeah.
It's kind of like Al Snow in the head. As much as I love him, like even in ECW, after about 4 months, we were like, all right, this fun's over. Like know.
Yep.
So, Simo, your thoughts on the great Eugene?
See, I don't agree with that Al Snow comparison because even after that 3, 4, 5, 6 months was over, Al Snow was still over. It got to the point with Eugene where it's like, all right, time out here. Get it back. Let this gentleman cut his hair, come back as a completely different wrestler, and do it. And again, valid under gimmick can't happen in 25.
Yeah. All right, we're going to jump to the next one. Now, before we say the next one, this is a ridiculous gimmick, but I got to put this in this is a very successful wrestler, but he is a character when you came out. The reason he made this list is like, hell yeah, and it's working. He is one of the all-time greats. I'm surprised you neither one of you had this on your list, but one of my all-time, the almighty George, the Animal Steel. You want to talk about gimmicks? You can't get any freaking better than this. This was a character that before he became Mr. Nice Guy and all that, he would go into the crowd and people would run like in pure terror. They thought this was a freaking caveman. I mean, wow, this guy was. There's stories where he would talk about he would go into a restaurant and people would get up and run. Like, well, that's him. No, it's him. Like back when this mattered, I loved George, early George, into him fighting Macho Man, of course, and all that. Like when he came, hanging out with Steamboat. I love how it ended. Like he ended up on top as an ultimate babyface, but he's definitely a character, so he makes this list. But he is one of the true legends. One that I miss. Like if once in a while I need to see something, I always put on Bobby Heenan and Monsoon, which I sent you to a clip, and this is how we ended up here again. But he is one of the guys I go to. I'll just go look for an old George the Animal Steel. If I need a quick 2-minute pick-me-up. But Matt, go for it.
He early savagery. I remember him, like I said, when I started watching when I was, I don't know, 9 or 10 years old. We're talking like 82. He'd come out and he would tear people apart. He was vicious and didn't have like the actual like goofball, imagery that he did later on in life. And I enjoyed him like that. He kind of took a little bit of a dip, had the whole feud with Savage for years, but he was always like the patsy. He was kind of like the guy who was going to get his ass kicked. They teamed with Steamboat, hung on for a while, but I'm with you, man. I love the early George Steele, like just complete. You're talking like Abdul the Butcher, complete savagery is what he showed off back in the day.
And the way I said it already, but the way he would run into the crowd and like he's chasing them and slam like oh my God, like they can't control him. He's coming after us too. It was like wow. Yep. That would never go over well. That would never happen, like ever, because people would take him up on it. Number one, and just two, you're looking at insurance, an insurance disaster. But Gilmore, your thoughts on the great George the Animal Steel?
Yeah, I'm a little bit younger than you guys, so I remember the goofy bite the turnbuckle George Steele, and man, I was scared of him as a kid. I was pretty sure he was going to show up and do that to my pillow, and next thing you know, I'm going to be out. So ridiculous.
I just hope he got that date in heaven, wrestler heaven with Elizabeth after all those years, because I love that. I love that whole. He loved it. I thought that was such a brilliant idea. Whoever came up with it, I don't know who came up with it. Beauty and the Beast. That was I dug that. Even though Elizabeth, again, didn't say one word there in that entire, she just made a face like, oh, he likes me. All right. We're going into a train wreck now, and this is why he's on this list. Get ready, folks, for the mighty Glacier. Blood runs cold.
God.
Clearly, this is a Mortal Kombat character. Like they said, all right, we're gonna come up with something here, and I was like, all right, they're really building him up here, but like a karate ninja guy in 1996. Matt, all you.
I remember them just touting this guy for like months. The promos for months, they'd show the snow falling and they'd play this weird like Asian music, and just they were pushing this so hard. And when he finally came out, and I think it was at one of the pay-per-views, and there was literally, you could have heard a pin drop in the arena when he came out, because people were like, what is this shit? He had I would say a little bit better than a 50-50 run for probably the better part of 3 years in WCW. He suffered a lot of injuries. He came back in, I had to write it down. He came back in 1999 as Coach Buzz Stern, because the Glacier gimmick fell so flat. He actually got a match in with Goldberg. When Goldberg was a U.S. champ, Goldberg just destroyed him. So that was his, 15 minutes or 15 seconds rather. But you talk about something that just swirled in a porcelain for about 6 months. It was a mess.
The only thing I could think of on this is they were looking for something for the kids, maybe to buy some toys. If maybe the karate moves that could have worked, like maybe push them. But doing that, I have to say, it was the wrong time. I think late 80s, early 90s, it would have worked, but we were way past this. Like, we have the NWO and the Attitude Era about to go, and like, you're bringing in this. You want to go back to this, like, karate kicks, and like, he ain't Tajiri, like vicious kicks or nothing. He's just like, karate cha. You're just like, okay.
Yeah.
The fact that Glacier in 2025 is more over than he's ever been in his career says everything you need to know. If you see him at an event, you see the people lining up to see him.
Mm-hmm.
Good for him. I put him in 1996 to 1998 in the back of my mind.
Well, speaking of the next one, the next group here is actually successful. We're kind of making trying to go after the train wrecks, but the fact of the matter is, because they're parodying something that was so huge at the time, I just think we loved it. And me being an ECW guy, the almighty BWO. This was absolutely perfect to come out at the perfect freaking time, because they were the hottest thing out there. And the fact that, Meanie and Richards were just parroting everybody from Public Enemy, the Kiss. I mean, they did everybody, and there was only one thing left to do. And usually, if anybody remembers ECW to a T, whatever parody they were doing, it was kind of over within a week or two. Then they'd just be back to Meanie and the Richards. This took off, and they had something, and they were to beat. Yeah, I think they were going to stay to BWO if Stevie Richards didn't leave. Once he left, Dick, he kind of had to break that up. But what a fun time, and I loved it, Matt.
This is just a testament to how in tune to the game Paul Heyman was back in the day. Like I said, he's probably one of the greatest of all times. You talk about just a pro wrestling mind, but even back then, it just shows with him fighting his ass off to keep that little organization running and turn it into what he did. But he also had the ear and the eyes out at the other organizations, and then almost just poking the bear the whole time, saying, NWO, fuck you guys. Blue World Holder. It was classic, dude. This was so fun. This was great stuff.
I even loved the guitar, because it was kind of poking fun out of it, and it was more lame.
Yeah.
It was cheesy. I loved it.
Great stuff. Yep.
Similar, your thoughts on the almighty BWO?
One, I'm glad you mentioned the music because I remember vividly. My brother got married April of 1997, maybe 98. And when they came out in the reception, they came out to the Blue World Order theme song. And it was priceless. It was priceless. And the fact that they had all these spin-offs of the BWO, like the NWO, they had who was it? They had the
LWO. I mean, they had a lot.
But no, I'm saying with the Blue World Order, they had the Japanese wrestlers coming in. Man, it was just perfect timing, perfect execution.
Yeah, sometimes some things hit at the right time. Like, yeah, and it was the perfect time for that. Plus, them being the Revolution, it was just a perfect point and poke. And I know Hall and Nash, like, they approved it. They loved it. They were just like, yeah, that's pretty freaking cool. Because they weren't really truly making fun of them. There was a little bit of a tribute to them, just them doing their things. And so,
and I don't think anybody other than Stevie, Meanie, and Nova would not have executed properly either. The three people to
you picked the three perfect guys to run that angle. It was the best.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
All right. Now there's this next character is very successful, but he had one era here that I used to just go absolutely crazy for. And you want to talk about when the cartoon characters were in their prime? This guy, the second they were doing the trailers and the previews for this guy, the fact that he would kept spelling his name, I was in right there. The almighty Double J, JARRET. The fact that Jeff Jarrett was going to use the WWF to get a record contract in Nashville. I was just in. And his debut, he finishes on Monday Night Raw with a drop kick. And I cheered it. It went crazy. And everybody's done. I was like, that was the stupidest thing that's ever happened. You know, there was a long time before Slap Nuts and Don't Piss Me Off and the like when he really arrived. But Trainwreck, and I loved it. And I loved the song, even though he didn't sing it. But I have that song. I play it all the time. Matt, your thoughts on the great Double J?
Where do you start? Son of Jerry Jarrett. I mean, he's already born into royalty. I mean, they brought him in. He ran that goofy angle, had the Road Dogg as the roadie.
Yep.
You know, later on, tagged with Owen Hart, won the tag championships.
Oh, great, yeah.
Had the feud with China. Like, he was just, I mean, the guy now is still delivering amazing work in AEW with a feud with MJF. The guy just spans generations. He's amazing. Yeah. How can you not love this guy? But that angle was really goofy, though, with the light up JJ on the hat. I still can't do the strut today to this. I can't get it. I can't do it right.
And it was just Ric Flair slowed down. That's all it was.
Yeah, pretty much, yeah. Yeah.
And
being a Horseman guy, everybody hated it. I was like, I don't mind Jarrett, but the Horseman.
I like it.
I like it. Don't fit at all, but
it was all right. Yeah.
Similar, your thoughts on the great Double J?
Man, the hat glowing with them two J's was the most ridiculous thing ever. And then you got the fact that not only is he still wrestling AEW, I want to say 2-3 years ago, he wrestled a death match in GCW. Like, the dude is putting out work at got to be 65.
Early to mid 60s, easily. Yeah.
And he's still putting out work better than he did when he first came out.
Actually, we're wrong. He's 57, according to
really. Oh wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. But
that's
still,
that's impressive, man.
A few years ago, doing a death match in your 50s, like, I don't want to do that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I mean, Morton did one a couple years ago too. So
I hear you. All right. So the next one here is, I'm just going to pass it over to Max with his selection. This is the part where I kind of dipped out of wrestling for a little bit. But I can already see why. This is on our countdown.
Oh, God.
Kerr and White.
Lord.
Matt, you picked them. You go.
He came over in 2001 with the big WCW sale when they sold off to McMahon's. Chavo, he's part of wrestling royalty, and he had a good deal. He was moderately successful for a while. And I believe it was, he won the Cruiserweight title 2001 after Eddie passed away, sadly. He turned into, he wanted to be, and he approached, I read that he approached McMahon to be a white guy. He came down to the ring in a golf cart with golf clubs, and he was naming himself Kerwin White. He said, if you're not white, you're not right. I mean, you couldn't do that shit now. And he bagged on it after a short spell.
I wish he would come back, and then you get a black guy that called himself white.
Exactly.
That would have been the best if they just pushed.
Yeah. I mean, Chavo, one of the most technical guys out there, and he hung on in NXT and trained people for years. But to run that angle and McMahon sign off on it, it was a nightmare. It was horrible. It was just uncomfortable to watch, and just shoving your whiteness down everybody's throats. It was a mess.
To top it all off, I mean, like I said, I was out during this, but the Attitude Era is over with. So, like, where were you kind of going with this?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Zim, any thoughts on this one? Because I don't really have much.
There was a point in time I stopped watching, especially WWE, and that was one of the times. So
all good. Yeah,
you weren't missing anything, that's for sure.
This is good. This is all right. All right, but this next one we're all going to know very well. This is a character I always pop for, even though he didn't have too good success. But I do know he has 3 amazing theme songs that I have on this computer that I listen to on a regular basis. This is a character, again, that makes you get on your feet. The almighty Coco Beware. So Coco, I just remember those 3 songs. I remember Frankie. I remember his move, the Ghostbuster, and I remember him losing. But it didn't matter. I cheered him every time. Matt, all you.
You know what? Kudos to you, man, for putting this one on the list. I completely forgot about Coco. Oddly enough, we used to have a lot of dark matches that came around my area, and me and my father went back in the day. And I don't know why to this day, but he was one of my father's favorite wrestlers because he just loved that stupid fucking bird. And I'd watch him, and I'd be like, what is this guy bringing to the game? He had like a drop kick that was halfway decent, but like you said, no move set.
Nope.
Usually got his ass kicked, but it was the bird. But the fans flocked to the damn bird. Outside of that, there wasn't much more than that.
It had to have been too, and Vince. We're talking about Vince in the land of giants. Here's this short man too. I'm surprised he did last this long, but I think it's because that song "Power Driver" was the one that won. I think that just gave him a little bit of a seniority. I got to keep this guy for a few years.
Yeah,
Simo, your thoughts on the great Coco Beware and Frankie?
I remember being a kid and seeing Coco coming down with Frankie, and it made my day. It made the whole thing.
Yep.
I loved it. I loved it. Being in the stands at the CYC, dancing with the arms waving, loved it. Bring it on. I want more.
Exactly. And I have to also just piggyback off of that. The wrestling songs, even in the 80s, you kind of knew the words and all that. But I can remember us being on the bus, all of us we didn't get along, but singing the Power Driver song, like repeatedly going to school. Like, that's talk about unifying everybody. Like, that's what that damn bird did. All right. Moving on. This next wrestler I have high respect for. You guys all know when he pops up, you almost be like, what's he doing in this list? I'm going to explain this. This guy is still very relevant, has had an amazing career. But I say gimmicks that made me smile immediately. I'm not sure if it's going to be your cup of tea, but I absolutely love Lord Steven Regal. Better than I like William Regal, and I'll tell you why. When you look at this guy, He is in pure character. This is a guy that's been sent by the Queen to do the Queen's bidding, and he's in total disgust that he has to be there. He hated America. I mean, you come out, smoke would go by, he'd be like, what? Like he was in such disgust that I could never stop. I couldn't take my eyes off him. He never let his guard down. He was basically like the Undertaker, like that. Like no matter what, I am the Undertaker. I'm dead the entire time. He was like, I am this character. He never smiled. I never saw Regal smile in a match ever. You know, and his moves. He was him and like versus Brian Pillman. I mean, this guy had a arsenal, and I was sad when he left WCW because I don't know. I like the character Lord, where some of that sprinkled over with Vince, but they changed him up and everything. And I'm glad. He's always going to be. I wish him luck and everything, and I know he's still working with the WWE, but. Lord, particularly Lord Steven Regal. And I don't know why the Blue Bloods never won the tag belts because it's heat. Nobody liked them. Why didn't they win? No one was cheering the Blue Bloods but me. I'd have been the only guy getting popcorn and sodas thrown at me in the audience. That's what you get when you come to the ring. So, Matt, all you.
I'll tell you what, if you ever could look back at the list of pro wrestlers you want to have at your back in a bar fight, you would probably say in real life, Steven Regal's got to be one of them. Tough son of a bitch. If it wasn't for, he had a little bit of a pill popping problem, and I think that kind of derailed his career a little bit. But yeah, Lord Steven Regal was fun. And then when, McMahon, outside of the man's man, when he had the flannel shirt on and just, that was horrible.
That was a good ass song.
Yeah, it was funny. Yeah. Later on, when they promoted him as the guy with the power of the punch, he started to come back up into prominence. But you know what? His matches were great. He was crisp. He was never a guy that put on a sloppy fight. Yep. He was fantastic, man. But the Lord Steven Regal gig was real fun to watch.
He had and I remember in WCW there was two infamous things. He didn't like heavy metal Van Hammer. And because Van Hammer won the arm wrestling contest, it kept saying he's a gigantic star because of it. So I don't know if it was Harley Race had people over his house, but Regal walked up to him and didn't say, and just headbutted him and knocked him out. Like he didn't like, that's how much it. So like I said, Regal's a badass, and he's the guy we all know when he says repeatedly, when WCW says, Goldberg, we're going 8 minutes. I'm giving you 8 minutes. And like, talk about being exposed. Like, yeah, that was you. Goldberg didn't even know what to do in that match. Like,
he turned his ass inside out. He made him look completely stupid, like a 1 or 2 move wrestler. It was a display. It was a clinic he put on.
Yep. And you saw how far behind he was because they knew they had to eventually start getting him to longer matches. Like you just can't squash. So Regal's a perfect guy, and it wasn't working. It wasn't working. It ain't his fault. Simo.
Regal was the perfect wrestler. That bell rang, you knew he was a step above everybody else. But when it comes down to gimmick and executing a gimmick, he was able to do serious as well as anybody. Goofy, his facial expressions were small, minute things. They say little things make big, I forget the phrase. I'm drawing a blank right now. Wow, brain fart. Anyway, small things make big differences. And just a small little smirk, Regal had every aspect. And when he was in a comic character like Lord Steven Regal, woo, perfect. Hysterical.
And before we move to the next one, I got to say, if you guys remember, one of his best series I ever saw was him in WCW versus Benoit. Because they had a barn burner of a rival, and they made you believe it. They made you believe they were fist fighting like all over the city before they got to the match. Like them guys really went at it. And that was a wrestling clinic. Chris Benoit versus Regal. Wow. Like you get a chance to see it. Check it out.
Also with the way he acted, if you ever want a good laugh, just look up the YouTube clips of when they ran the angle with him and Jericho in WWF when Jericho pissed in his teapot that night.
I don't know that.
It's some of the funniest stuff you will ever see. You got to watch it. It's classic.
All right. Next one coming up to me was part of one of the best tag team ever. Even though it was short lived, but he's been around. He had a few different gimmicks, if you will. But there was one he was pushed on as punishment, and it got him over. So I am going to nominate Perry Saturn with the mop. Does anyone remember this? This is after he beat up who the hell was the guy he beat up in the match? So Saturn got hit in a match. I'm trying to remember who the wrestler was. Someone in the comments could probably jump in on this, but Saturn beat him up like right there. Because he was knocked out. When he woke up, he thought he was getting beat up, so he beat that guy up. But as punishment, they said you're gonna just walk around with this mop, but it worked. It backfired. The fans got into it. So the fact that Perry Saturn was, hanging out with a mop, that was absolutely hilarious. Plus, Saturn's was a wacky character to begin with. So the fact that you have Al Snow with the head, and now you got a guy talking to a mop. Matt, were you around for this era? Or
I do. Yeah, I remember this one vividly. I remember him back in the day when he used to wrestle for WCW, and he was one of the most solid technical wrestlers there was. Of course, McMahon latched onto when they ran the whole Fanatics angle with him, Benoit, Malenko, and Guerrero. They came in and they were kicking all the crap out of all the WWF guys. And, he was so solid, and he played off the other guys so well. And I consider this another, albeit funny, it was another lost opportunity by McMahon to literally, you could have pushed this guy as a solid singles wrestler to do a lot more outside of carrying the mop around. It was funny, but it was a lost opportunity. It really was.
You're right. And overall, Perry Saturn should have been way bigger. Like, I understand he had his own personal demons that, he was stopping him, but he was just so good. And that Eliminators will always, to me, because saw it. I've seen the Eliminators wrestle like 50 times, like with my own eyes, and there's just nothing. To me, that'd be like saying, "Hey, you saw the Rolling Stones, Michael Jackson going through name all the heavyweights, and then you're going to go to this little concert over here." That's how good the Eliminators were. Simo,
Total Elimination's greatest tag team finisher of all time. Period. End statement.
Yep.
Anybody who didn't have fun with Moppy and Saturn, I challenged them to record themselves talking to this cup and make it believable.
Yep.
I'm in my daughter's room. She's 8. Talk to this Valentine's bag that she's got for her class and make it believable.
Yep. Sweet. All right. We're moving on, and they're going to get worse. Starting with this one. This is one of the best ones ever. The almighty Red Rooster. Let me tell you something about this. I realize you as someone who's looking at it as a Monday morning quarterback, everybody knows I was involved with wrestling. If Vince McMahon handed me that, you're going to be Red Rooster Jr., I would have made that work. Oh my God, would I have made that work? Like, he was given this gimmick as punishment because they kept saying that he was very bossy. And Vince is like, he thinks he's like the head rooster. So they're like, got an idea. This was supposed to humble him, and it did, but he didn't run with it. It's the 80s. Go with this. Like, you got to run with this the way Owen Hart ran with the second wave of the Blue Blazer. Like, he was all in, and it was make it funny, make it work. But yes, Terry Taylor will always be the Red Rooster. I still remember that theme song, and I'm in 5th grade. I liked it. I was like, cool. I remember we're all doing the chicken, that stupid chicken dance. It was cool. Like, everybody, girls were doing it. It was stupid, but it was over. You just wish you should have looked at it a little bit different, But
all right, so we're going back to Terry Taylor.
Yes,
I'll go with this. Mid-South, fabulous ones. Steve Curtin, fantastic ones. Bobby Fulton. iconic tag teams back in the day. Comes to McMahon. WCW it ran with Crockett for years. WCW 88 comes to McMahon and he says, "You're gonna have a fucking red tail on your head. You're gonna be the Red Rooster." I put my head in my hands. They stuck him with Heenan for a short time, very short time. Even Heenan couldn't bring this guy up. And I think at some point they said, look, it's not working. He had a few extra visits there over the years as the years went by. And this was a total drop ball. I really loved Terry Taylor back in the day because he was so just scientific and just a fantastic wrestler. He probably could have gone a lot further, but this was another one of my drop ball moments. Red Rooster. This was just bad.
Simo, your thoughts on the red one?
Terry Taylor was your textbook Southern style technical wrestler, and he was as good as anybody could be with that. And when he came in as the Red Rooster, it was so ridiculous.
It's crazy when you fall like that, because as soon as he went back to WCW, he had his hair slicked back, wearing a suit, and he was part of the York Foundation. And I dug the York Foundation, but headed by Alexander York, who was Marlena. It was like her debut, so it's pretty crazy. Yeah. So, but the Great Red Rooster, and now I am very excited to bring up this next character. I have this theme song. This was one of these, again, a character that's ridiculous and awesome. A hell of a career, but this particular character rules. And you both did not list this man, but I knew I had to. The almighty model, Rick Martel. Oh my gosh, guys, what an awesome character. He's so good looking. He's a model. And he's got cologne that he's bringing to the ring.
Arrogance.
I just thought one of the best things ever, because this is back in the day where good guys and bad guys had to only fight. That angle with Sherry, with Shawn Michaels versus Rick Martel, where like she was flirting with both of them and then she faints because they're both hitting each other in the face. That was like one of the best ever. Jake the Snake getting arrogance in the face. Like that was Rick Martel's gimmick was with the model was an absolute home run. And that fact that harp, it's wrestling and he comes out to a harp. I was just like, oh, that's so good. And the music was kind of pornish too. Like I kind of had like late 80s porn mixed with the harp. Matt, go for it.
Yeah. I mean, what more is there to say? I like Martel. He was fun. He had a few good tag partners back in the day. But if you just want to see just absolute clumsy horse shit, just watch WrestleMania 7 with the blindfold match with Jake the Snake. It was like, who came up with this? Who decided this? Oh, this is going to bring people in. People are going to love this. I watched that match, and it's sad to say I've watched it dozens of times, and I just sit there and I shake my head. But no, his character was fun though.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And that had to have been the easiest pay for Jake and Rick, because all they had to do was walk around like this, and tease the crowd, and then one DDT and it's over.
Yep.
Simo, your thoughts on the great Rick the Model Martel?
As I said, I had him on my list, and just the spray of arrogance. I do have the theme song in my playlist buried there, but I remember being at the CYC when he came out spraying that arrogance, and I got a whiff, and I swear to God, either somebody in front of me farted, or that was the most nasty smelling cologne I've ever fucking smelled.
Did they actually have something in that thing that was?
It probably was like, something to
the smell of.
Yeah, because it's probably something to smell bad to get more heat.
I always wondered what was in there. I just didn't know.
I just figured it was water, but it sounds like
that's what I thought too. Yeah.
I honestly, I would say it's probably a watered down version of Lysol.
Madness.
Some type of clean.
Moving on to a character that was definitely kind of forgotten. I like Matt brought this one to the table. The great Saba Simba. Wow. Yeah. Talk about falling from grace. I think Mr. USA Tony Atlas was a much better character. But yeah, Matt, all you.
One of the more celebrated guys, with McMahon from 79 to 84, one of the first black tag teams with Rocky Johnson. It just made people feel good. They were such a great tag team. And I know he got booted in 84 because he had a little bit of a drug problem.
Yeah.
So he bounced around for a little bit. Came back, I think it was 90, 91, and they branded him with this. He looked like he was an extra in the last scene of The Lion King. It was like, what are you guys doing? He had a friggin' headdress on, and he came out and he was barefoot and he was stomping around, and it was just all I could say every time I saw him was, what is going on here? This is a nightmare.
And
it was such a disservice.
The only difference in his look, like he had no beard, was this.
Right.
It's Tony Atlas with a shaved head. Like,
that's what it was. Yep.
Like, we can't. Come on, you got to try a little bit here. There's a difference of growing your hair longer, short, beard, no beard, but like there's hardly no difference.
Just bad all around.
Simo, do you have do you have any comments on this one?
It was just terrible.
Simple as that.
All right, moving on to the next one.
Easy.
So, this next character is one where I was not around for, but I have to give kudos because this even made my it bounced to me, even though I wasn't watching wrestling. That's how over this character got.
Hello,
Boogeyman, who you can now probably meet at Truro Theater most of the time. Matt, your pick. You're going.
I have him listed as 2004 to 2009 at WWF, WWE, whatever the hell they call it themselves back in the time. He was one of the early competitors on one of the first Tough Enoughs. And I remember he was so bad, with just the simple fundamentals, they bounced him. And then he proposedly pitched this whole angle to them later on as he got booted. But it was something that just never went anywhere. Very minimal reaction with the crowd. They latched him onto Jillian Hall back in the day. One day, like they had one night on SmackDown, he like ate a wart off of her face or something like that. It was so stupid. And just he like shoved live worms in people's mouths after beating him in a match, and literally no skill set, no scientific anything. It was it was horrible. One of the dumbest characters I've ever seen in my life.
Simo, any thoughts? Because I don't really have any on this one. I don't know this one.
He's another one similar to Glacier, more popular, more over now than he was, in his peak. What I will say about Boogeyman was I was contemplating putting him on, but then I'm like, you know what? Honestly, this dude was the Demon Finn Balor before Finn Balor was the Demon.
Yep.
And his influence was in the character was pretty high. So I was like, let me just knock it off.
Sweet. Short and sweet. All right. Moving on to this other infamous WWF, I said WWF, icon is the almighty Bastion Booger. You know what's crazy about this? This guy was in WCW and was so over as Norman the Lunatic that I was like, wow, this guy's going to succeed when I found out they signed him. And you want to talk about rebranding? Wow. Like just wow. But I couldn't help. He had the dumbest song ever. He was funny. It was short-lived, but it's very infamous. Matt.
I think this is one of these times when I kind of tuned out a little bit. I mean, I was, sticking around listening, but I do remember they tried to do something with him. I don't know if it was before or after the whole Bastion Booger gimmick where they had him play as a monk.
Yeah.
And then that didn't go anywhere. So they tried the whole Bastion Booger thing, and they had like his theme song was like him coming out to sounds of like farts and burps,
Yeah.
and just. I mean, people. It was more geared towards the kids, but after a while, even the kids were like, "Nah, this didn't last." I don't even know how long the gimmick lasted for, but I look back at it to this day and just say, "This is one of those completely like you just lob a Hail Mary and it went nowhere." It was just bad, totally bad.
You know, I feel bad for this guy because Michael P.S.A.'s told the story about like he went and talked to him. He's like, "I don't what this isn't what I signed up for." All he's like, "Well, you're gonna have to get a meeting with Vince." And he went and he got it and he came out. He goes, "What happened?" He goes, "They fired me." You went and complained about your gimmick and they got rid of you. I was like, wow. I was like, Simo, your thoughts on the great Bastion Booger?
Yeah, nah.
At a loss for words.
I already used the word terrible. Even back in what was it, about 95, 96, I'm teenage year, you would think I'm the target audience for this guy. 93. I love fart jokes, I love burping, I still love farts and burps. This guy did absolutely nothing to bring me in.
I just find it funny. It's just the kids are supposed to like this, a slob. It's like madness. All right. Sorry, Bastion. It didn't go over too well, buddy. But all right. Let's bring up the insane funny train of ridiculousness. This man was considered one of the nicest people ever in wrestling, and from either company, WCW, WWF, to say he was the nicest guy. It just didn't work. I always remember his work more in WCW, but I got to go again for the WWF. Ladies and gentlemen, I give you Giant Gonzalez, who shows up at Royal Rumble 93 in front of The Undertaker, wiggling his fingers. I always remember that. I was like, what's happening? Poor guy. I mean, the outfit alone was unbelievably cartoonish because the guy didn't really have a muscular figure. He was just a tall man. Didn't work. Didn't work at all. He's definitely one of the laughable guys. Unfortunately, he died because of his size. But Matt, your thoughts on Giant Gonzalez?
I usually pride myself on, picking these guys out of a hat and say, okay, I remember this guy. I do remember him. And they literally, talk about tossing all your eggs in one basket. They literally brought this guy in just to try to push The Undertaker. And they had him run this ridiculous feud with him for a while. And, he had a few matches where he beat the piss out of The Undertaker. I think one of them culminated in a WrestleMania. It might be WrestleMania 9 at Vegas. But it's just, he had nothing to offer. He just was a big 7'4" guy stomping around the ring. And with that, with the outfit alone is legendary. But yeah, this was terrible. So bad.
Yeah. Similar, your thoughts on the great Giant Gonzalez?
When I think the highlight of your career is when you're in that amazing faction with ICP, with John Tenton,
the oddities, yeah,
the oddities. You really had a great career. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You're wearing a suit of muscles that you don't have. I think I have a shirt like that somewhere because I got the 6-pack sitting here. But yeah, he was right what he was, and it worked perfectly for him.
Sweet. Rest in peace, there, buddy. Sorry, but to anybody out there, the wrestling fans, feel free to comment. I answer everything on the YouTube page. I hope you guys are enjoying the lineup. Anybody we missed? Well, the list isn't over, but we're getting close. All right. This next character is wrestling royalty. This guy's been around. His offspring has done very well. But he ran into an awesome gimmick. And this is a ridiculous gimmick, again, that makes me smile. But it freaking worked. Ladies and gentlemen, you guys left off the list. The almighty IRS. What an amazing... A guy that does your taxes. He comes in the ring with a briefcase and no music. What wrestler comes to the ring with no music because he's doing business? What character ever is guaranteed to get pushed from January to April every year? No matter what. Like, even if you're hitting a bad dry spell, they're going to find a way to get you back on track for January to April. Wow. And I was one of the only, Simo, you said it because I know exactly what you're talking about. I was one of the only people screaming my head off at the CYC when he would come out. Everybody told like, you like this guy? Like, yes, I do. Why? Because you don't like him. That's why. It was so beautiful. Matt, your thoughts on the great IRS character?
Incredibly talented, Mike Rotundo. So solid technically, amazing wrestler. Played second fiddle to Barry Windham in the U.S. Express, WrestleMania 1. And then they bounced him over to the IRS character, and just it was the same thing. It was like you call it, Lauren. It was a very simple character move, but it worked when they teamed with DiBiase.
Oh,
this was great stuff. He came out and he went, "I'm coming after you because you don't pay your taxes, and I'm beating on these guys because you don't pay your taxes." That was just amazing stuff. How can you not love that? This is a fun gimmick. Totally.
And one of the best ever, because you look at like the history of Americans, what we did to the Native Americans. You remember when he went after Tatanka? It was like, all you had to do is pay taxes on this, and he's beating him in the face with like, oh, you're like, oh man. Yeah, that was like a dark one. Like, yeah. And he's yelling, all you had to do is pay your tax on this, and you'd have been fine. Similar, your thoughts on the great IRS?
Man, what a great wrestler he was.
Yep.
What a great wrestler. What a great time in wrestling he came out too. Right, where every time Vince had a problem with somebody, he created a gimmick to mock you. That was right when he had the problem with they were coming after him for unpaid tax or whatever.
Yep.
And they had to go get him. Yep, perfect. You better pay your taxes.
Oh, it was just too good. And the fact that you put him with DiBiase, who, if you really think about it, who is more hated, DiBiase or IRS? They're both hated really well, but people like DiBiase with the money. Like, what did you like about, like, how could you look at IRS? Like, there's nothing to go on other than that, like, he's just so hated.
I'll be right back.
Like him. Like, you just had to like him. And in a rare occasion, what was it, WrestleMania 9? They beat Hogan and whoever the tag team partner was. Like, Hogan always won every WrestleMania back then. I think it was disqualification, but good
I think
for
so.
them. Good for them.
Yep.
All right. Coming up next is one of the worst train wrecks ever. But the wrestler did turn out to be one of the the all-timers. But this is when he was on a bad time. Ladies and gentlemen, I give you the Incredible Oz.
Oh, God. Lord.
I'm leaving this up here for a second for everybody to pay attention to the far right.
Get a good look at it. Get a good look.
Yeah. I'll always remember when Diesel showed up as Diesel, and I was like, oh, that's Oz. I was like, yeah, he's probably going to do better up here. Guy down, Kevin Nash down there, where they just didn't know what to do with him, and I think they just looked at, he's a big guy. You can't just be a tough guy. Let's go overkill. The fact that they gave him a mask and they made him like a wizard, and then you take it off, I didn't understand that one at all. Matt, your thoughts? Because this is one of your picks anyway.
Guy comes out in 1991. They label him as one of the Master Blasters.
Yep.
And I didn't even know who the hell his partner was, but they later on they literally labeled him the Master Blaster. Went nowhere. horrible. So from 91 to 92, they labeled him as Oz. Came out with the green light, the mask, and it apparently flaked out because they had a contract dispute, so they bagged out on that. Then he became Vinny Vegas.
Which was better. I mean, which was definitely better, but
that was fun. No, that was a fun gimmick. He'd come up with the dice and and of course we know where he was at that with the Outsiders and the NWO. But to start off and just basically eat shit for the first 2-3 years of your career with these horrible gimmicks, and I don't know who was booking back then or who came up with the creative ideas for this, but those were so bad. It was terrible ideas.
Well, you have that, and you got at the other time you got like the Undertaker's Mean Marcellus, which they were giving a bigger push to, but it just wasn't working. Like,
right.
Sometimes people get lost in the shuffle, and that was one that certainly blew up. If you want to say like Nash, Undertaker, Steve Austin, they talk about taking your garbage and turn them into glory.
Yeah,
you know. But, I mean, you could sit there and go the other way, too. I mean, certain people went down there and did really good. So I guess it's the right place, right time. All right, next one. This guy's on my list because I personally got to see this, like I said, with my ECW era. This guy's we're always going to know this guy as a Southern wrestler and everything. But when they took this guy and shoved him in this fraction, it was so ridiculous that I loved every minute of it. The Big Don, Tommy Rich with the FBI, hailing from Nashville, Italy. Guys, everybody knows I have a little bit of history here with the ECW. I just gotta say, I hope he's in a better place now. I just saw him actually wrestle at the ECW arena, the 2300 arena. But Tommy Rich knew how to party. I actually hung out with Tommy Rich on several occasions, party with this guy, and the next day when I talked to him, he would look me in the face like, "Who the hell are you?" That's the type of party he has, and I'd be like, "Oh shit, this was 51st dates. I'm back to that. All right, I got a few of these now." But Tommy, the fact that they put him in with a ridiculous group like that. When I say ridiculous group, Smothers and Guido. No disrespect, those guys were amazing wrestlers, but they were made to be a little bit comical here. The fact that you take a legendary icon and he's attempting to say all the Italian, I'm an Italian guy here. I didn't care. I was like, it's funny, but he's trying to do all the Italian sayings and stuff, and it just ain't working. I don't know about you guys, how much experience or anybody else who's watching this one, but this particular era, the Big Don, Wildfire, Tommy Rich. Oh, God, I loved it. Matt, any thoughts on this one?
You called it, man. Wildfire, a staple, an absolute staple of the old Georgia Championship Wrestling, former NWA champ. I mean, he was fun. And then just talk about doing a 180 and a complete about face to bring him in and play this Goomba. But it was funny, though. It was, I mean, you had to just embrace the complete inanity of it all. It's just like, because everybody knew who he was. If you were a wrestling fan, Tommy Rich, heavy Southern accent, fun guy, solid technically, and then it just turned him into one of these guys who was doing the whole, it was fun stuff. I liked it. I thought it was funny.
It worked so good too, because everybody knows like the map of the United States of like the Northeast is where the Italians are, not Tennessee.
Right.
Not Tennessee. Similar your thoughts on the great Big Don.
Wait. You guys are telling me that there's no such place as Nashville, Italy? It ain't a borough in Palermo?
That's it. I don't know.
It's off the map, Simo. A little off the map. A little bit.
Gotta love it. All right. This next character. Let me tell you something. A lot of wrestlers look like this guy now. I wish they did kind of give him a good push. I just don't think this guy had the wrestling ability to become something great. But his look at this time, nobody looked like him. And I understand he was supposed to be like their version of The Undertaker, but it didn't work. But, ladies and gentlemen, Vampiro. I don't know if I could say much more than that. But you knew when they were trying to put him with Sting, they were trying to launch a dark character. His look was perfect there with blocks and the nobody looked like that. Everybody looks like that now, but nobody looked like that. He had such an advantage, but I can't name you a Vampiro move. I just remember I hated his kicks. He had these side kicks that I hated. It just didn't work. Matt, your thoughts on Vampiro?
Dude, I tell you what, I'm normally right there running neck and neck with you, but I think you finally stumped me on this one. As much as I paid attention to stuff back in the day, I'd almost completely forgotten about this guy. I remember him coming out in matches and just I don't remember the theme music. I don't remember anything, but like you said, very limited, short move set. I don't know if he held a title. I just don't know what the move was to get this guy. And he had a rather successful run later on in life on the independent circuit. People love this guy. He's got a cult following for some reason. But yeah, dude, I was just no idea. I totally forgot about this guy completely.
Ball to you, Simo.
Let's forget that he's still minimally active, and when he was coming out in WCW, he was coming out with the Misfits. They were giving him the big, the pushes with that. He was also the AAA Mega Champion. Personally, Lucha is my favorite style of wrestling, between Lucha and Deathmatch. And he was on the cover of news periodicals, the dirt sheets, if you will, down in Mexico. He took over Conan's spot being the man in the late 90s in AAA and the Lucha scene down in the days. So, I mean, just seeing him coming out there and the styles difference between what he was doing in Mexico and what he was doing in America in the 90s was just a culture shock, a train wreck that I loved.
Yeah, I mean, again, they really pushed this guy. It was kind of like, even if you saw behind the curtain in The Wizard of Oz, it was like they pulled the curtain back. No, you didn't see shit. It's gonna work and you're gonna like it. I thought he got that type of a push, but again, what Matt said, I said he doesn't remember any. I remember them terrible kicks. I can't remember move. You say any wrestler, you should be able to remember at least 3 moves they were known for. That's how much I forgot. I just remember he was on an amazing push, but it didn't work. But with that being said, folks, we're down to the final 5. I promise you, they're awesome and beyond ridiculous at the same time. So we're going to go with the last. This is a character nobody talks about. I know you two. This is not on your list, but you're going to remember. From, I would say, more of primetime wrestling, Jameson.
Oh, God.
Does everybody remember the great Jameson? The guy that made Bobby Heenan sick all the time. Remember, in the middle of it, he'd be blowing his nose and doing, he would just be doing gross stuff, but he was, over. Everybody liked him, but he was basically a nerd, like the late 80s nerd that when that was still kind of a thing. Jameson was one, though, that always made me laugh. I got into it, and I remember finding out later on he was just a New York-based actor. They want to bring some more characters into primetime wrestling, and he got it. But, yeah, Jameson. Now, how many of you wrestling podcasts are talking about Jameson? We are. Matt, all you on Jameson.
This was one of those. How many magic mushrooms were consumed by the creative writing back in the day? The guy had the dirty sock in his jacket pocket, and they tried latching him on to a number of wrestlers, and they were all just kind of like, "All right, we're not going to do this." He was always there. He was like an anal wart. He just hung around for years. Some people liked him, some people didn't. I do remember this, and this was a nightmare, straight up Freddy Krueger nightmare.
The biggest thing I always remember was he made Heenan sick, and the Warlord threw him off the roof. Do you remember that? Like, when it was like a dummy. It was like the worst looking dummy you've ever seen. Like, that's not a human.
The legs went flopping. It was horrible, man. Yeah, I remember that. Yep.
Simo, do you have memories of Jameson?
I can describe Jameson's career in wrestling with 2 words: do.
All right. Well, if you want doo-doo, wait till we get to this one here. You want doo-doo across the board? Get ready, everybody. All you wrestlers, get ready to pop for this one. Ladies and gentlemen, I give you the gobbledygoober. Does everyone remember this? Like, when that egg hatched, we were all, you're kind of like, what? Like, you're just like, what? The kids didn't even cheer, or you're just like, what's happening here? Do you remember the buildup of what's going to come out of this egg at Survivor Series? People wondered why I was like so pro 4 Horsemen and WCW over it, because like I was so over this countdown. Like, that's how I was as a kid. I was just, call me a smarter Mark or whatever, but like I want more adult orientated, and you'd want the late NWA, early WCW if you want it more adult back then. Because this was, to me, the rock of the rock bottom was the gobbledygoober. Matt.
If you want to look back over the course of history and see one of the biggest affronts or one of the biggest kicks in the nuts to pilgrims or anybody that celebrates Thanksgiving, look back at this announcement for the Survivor Series back in, I don't know, it was 87, 88, when this absolute dog shit got announced. They had the egg out there, and this fool came out and just they filmed it in front of a live crowd, and I've never seen more people like just literally talk about getting kicked in the nuts by Santa Claus on Christmas morning. There was nothing there. They didn't know what was going on. Did it even wrestle a match? Was it there any purpose?
You could even feel in Gorilla Monsoon's voice, like, why does Gorilla Monsoon know the name of it? Like, it's like what? It's a chicken. Like, oh, Gorilla. Oh, I know everyone knows the gobbledygoober. There it is. Like, what?
Did he give his name up? Did he announce his name? Yeah, I understand it. Yeah, it was horrible. It was terrible.
Like, if you're Bobby Heenan, like, I'd have to rewatch that. What did Bobby Heenan say when that thing came out? Like,
horrible.
Because he probably couldn't make fun of it too much because you don't want to kill it. Like, you have to try to give it a shot. So
I think when it broke out of the egg that killed itself, that was as bad as it was.
That's an egg that should have never been hatched.
Mm-hmm.
Simo, your thoughts on the great gobbledygoober?
That moment in wrestling history is up there with all-time legendary moments, such as Andre getting body slammed by Hogan, Colonel Sanders wrestling a chicken, that match in TNA where in order to win you have to put the opponent into a chicken or into a turkey suit, and the Shockmaster's debut. It's up there as a legendary moment.
Madness. All right. We're down to our final 3. There's no way I can hide this now because those words were just said, but we can just jump right into it. Coming in at 3rd, the almighty Shockmaster.
Oh, God.
Let me tell you something. I loved the early WCW 93, but when I heard he was coming, I was like, cool, let's see what he does down there. And you're just like, he falls through the wall, and I'm like, what? Why is he wearing a stormtrooper outfit? Like mask. Why has it got glitter all over it? That's like a second. Why is all that? Then you hear Davey Boy Smith saying, he fell onto his ass. He fell onto his ass. And I don't know how Sid and Vader held that face. Like, they're the best actors ever. They didn't break character, but like, the opponent fell through the wall. The Shockmaster, folks. Matt, go for it.
You planted this. Someone came up with this idea. You planted this in front of wrestling royalty. You're talking about Ric Flair. You put this in front of Ric Flair, Bulldog, Sting, Psycho Sid. And this is what comes out. This is the birth of your idea. A guy with a bedazzled stormtrooper helmet on who doesn't know how to kick out the wall underneath him, but he pushes the top. I'm not lying to you guys. I had to show this to my mother today. I was telling her what I was doing tonight. 81 years old. And she's like, that's terrible. That's horrible. This was absolute shit from bottom to top. Complete with the Ole Anderson voice dubbing. Mm-hmm. And if you listen to that clip right off he falls into Ole Anderson starts laughing before he starts talking. This was a nightmare from top to bottom. I will never see anything like this again, but it is reveled in history as one of the biggest collapses of the old WCW.
Because when he talks about it, it's like he can't see. That's why. Because so couldn't you? Why didn't you just give him a different style of mask where he could see to push through properly?
Yeah. Horrible.
Well, lots have to say really quick that the Shockmaster Fred is not doing good health wise right now. So sending him prayers his way, because we're just having a little bit of fun reminiscing here. But Simo, your thoughts on the Shockmaster?
The way you guys said everything except for one thing, and that's the way Sting called him out and the way he debuted him. And our last member is the Shockmaster. Like everybody knew who the Shockmaster was. Like he was already, like he's a 2-time mid-card champion and wrestled for the world championship twice. Like, oh, the Shock.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then everything happened that just made it so perfect.
Oh, God.
Oh, gosh. This countdown was so worth it. And we're coming in.
Absolutely.
We're down to our final two. So this last one, you two guys completely forgot. This is one of my favorites. I wish this guy could have had I know he works for the WWE. I think Vince missed out on a golden opportunity. I just don't know if this guy was injured like by the time he got up there. This was a character in WCW that was on fire because of his ridiculousness. And I just think like when they started pulling back, when Bischoff said like they want to go more kid oriented, I thought that this guy got a little bit pushed back. But this character, every time he came out from his walk to the ring, was just amazing. He made everybody laugh, and one of the best working technical wrestlers. Ladies and gentlemen, I give you the almighty Norman Smiley. Norman. The second I saw this guy, because he didn't come to the ring doing the wiggle, I'm like, he's got the short European shorts in the late 90s. He's really doing that. He's wiggling his boobs, but like he has no character yet. But you're kind of just like, then you're watching him wrestle, like, okay, he can wrestle. But when he started the dancing, and then once he started doing the butt slapping, you're just like, wow, like. Everyone's waiting for him to make you know, who's your daddy? It got so big. If you remember when WCW, they're like, we got to tone it back. They zoomed in on his like chest and face so you couldn't see. The audience could react. I was like, oh man, you killed them. Like you literally just killed this gimmick. If they didn't have to do that, I'm wondering how far Norman could have went. Because everyone was just waiting for it. Everyone was just waiting for something so stupid and silly, but in technical wrestling, come on, dude. Norman was freaking amazing. I mean, absolutely amazing. And then, you get the Russo era where you make him scared of Ming, but make him the hardcore champion. I loved it. Anything Norman Smiley did, and I think I always just pictured, because I've made this up in my head. Picture Norman in WWE. Vince McMahon doing like his just a speech in the ring, and he sees Norman in the crowd having fun, and he starts a rivalry with him where eventually Norman gives Vince McMahon that would have been the hugest thing.
Yeah, okay. Talent wise, very scientific. He was a good wrestler. He was fun. But yeah, with the gimmick, it was like watching water boil. But you know what? At the same time, it worked, but it kind of didn't work. He was funny. He knew how to get his shit across. He was one of the guys that he was basically caught in the middle. He was stuck. So I think if they maybe had put him with someone maybe bigger as maybe like an assistant or like someone that was kind of trying to hang on to someone else, maybe something else would have happened. He was fun though. He was funny. He had a good gimmick. Simple, very simplistic, but he was fun though. I kind of dug him.
So clearly he didn't get over with you the way he did with me, but this is why he's on this countdown, because he was the admitted, like you say the name Norman Smiley, I'm already laughing because like it was
right, yeah.
It went over that way, and I don't know if that's what he wanted to do, but that's just what the audience picked for him. And
it was simple and it worked, man. Yeah, it did. Yep.
Simo, your thoughts on the great Norman Smiley?
Smiling Norman Smiley.
Yep.
That's it. That's it. I had fun with him all the time.
Well,
imagine if he had. Now, we're gonna have to put him in a little bit of a time frame, but imagine if he was the pin eater for the Heenan family. What his career would have been like.
He would have been good, like as a servant too, like a Virgil type of guy. I think he would have been good too. But like he's a disaster. Like he's got to run with that. Like he's a disaster. But yeah, Norman was definitely right. Like God, Norman's one of my favorites. So we're now down to the number one. So before we jump into that, I just got to say, hope everybody enjoyed these selections. Feel free to comment on YouTube. Every comment I answer. Hit that subscribe button here on Average Superstar TV. Hope everybody had a good time with this list. Anybody, I'm sure there's a lot more. We could have sat here all day and added another 70 wrestlers easy. But, who should have been on this list? Let us know. But with that, we're going to go out with two icons. It's the reason Matt and Zimo are here when I sent it to them yesterday. These guys had both amazing success, and they make us laugh. And when I'm down, I go to YouTube and I put on Primetime Wrestling and watch Gorilla and Bobby, because they are what make me happy. They really are. I've always said, you got your George Carlins and whatever you want to name as comedians. Bobby Heenan in a different era could have been the best comedian. He could have been doing Netflix and HBO specials. That's how funny and sharp he was. When I watched Bobby Heenan, I'm like ashamed to say I was a wrestling manager. Because I'll never be that sharp. I mean, just the amazement of entertainment. These two have a amazing history, but I'll talk about this countdown, putting you in a good mood when you see them. Who was better than Bobby and Gorilla? Matt, all you.
Back in the day, when you watch Primetime, they didn't show the greatest matches. They showed like a lot of house show stuff, a lot of jobbers getting squashed. And if you were like me, you prayed for those matches to get over so you can get back to Bobby and Gorilla just going back and forth. Bobby fighting with the telephone, Gorilla with the 2x4. I mean, you had your modern day Laurel and Hardy, Abbott and Costello. Heenan was just, I can go on for days about Bobby Heenan. And Gorilla, outside of the wrestling career, one of the greatest announcers known to man. But these two you talk about clicking. This was gold back in the day. When you watch this was gold. I can't even go on enough about this. Absolute classic stuff. And
the simple fact, if you really watch, because we're more adults now when we watch, you could see sometimes Gorilla had no air in his stomach while Bobby was like delivering the joke and just doing his rant. Like, he can't respond if he wants, so Bobby's just elaborating more until he could catch his breath to like retort. It's like the best thing ever. Simo, your thoughts on these two icons?
Man, we don't have enough time to cover all of my thoughts, because not only were they the best together as far as your comedy, your credibility too. Let's not forget, like, both of them brought a level of credibility to the commentary table that is very important when you're talking commentary. Their timing, the way they fed off each other, the way it was just perfection. And you talk about going back to watch it, go back and watch it, and just reliving our youth. You could watch that with your grandmother who just got home from church. You could watch that with your 5-year-old kid that you just got done watching Bluey with, and the comedy is going to be on point, and it's going to be clean enough that you're not going to be like, oh well, let me explain that to you, Graham. You know what I mean? And the fact that it for all audiences, that to me that makes it a little bit more difficult for everything. And maybe that's just the culture we live in, where dropping f bombs is a norm. You know what I mean? In society today, and they could make you laugh harder than anybody can in a very G-rated setting.
Yeah, I love your wording on that. You're right, and that is very difficult because a lot of parents take their kids like to a movie and they're like, I got to sit through 2 hours of this. But like, it was perfect. You said it's a perfect blend for children and adult orientated at the same time, but it's not nerdy. Like you don't got to look at your kid and explain like, okay, so that one was more aimed towards adults. Like, no, it's perfect. To me, it's almost like the way the Muppets turned the last so many years. Like, there's hidden adult stuff in there, but like you don't have like they won't figure it out. You could safely watch this still. But with that, we're through the countdown, boys. Thank you so much for coming on.
It was a blast.
This was fun. This is awesome stuff.
I'll come up with another sort of countdown, but we'll see what the audience thinks on this one. And with that, again, like I said, everybody, please hit that subscribe button, and all comments are answered. And with that, I will say, till I see you all again, the party is over.